And welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. Today's episode, I'm confident, is going to go down as one of the biggest episodes I'll ever record. It is with the co-founder of Under Armour. His name's Kip Fulks, and he, alongside Kevin Plank, started Under Armour in a basement at 22 years old and grew it to a publicly traded company with just north of $4 billion in annual sales. Kip has an incredible story. He's also a partner in Origin, which is a company that Pete Roberts and Jocko Willink are also involved in. He also owns a brewery and an outfitting company, and he's just got some incredible connections, an incredible life story, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. If you guys get any value out of this episode, please share the link with a friend. Sending it to just one or two people makes a huge difference for me as I continue to try and grow this show. Thank you guys for listening, and let's get right into the episode.
Man, appreciate you having me. Sorry we played the scheduling game for so long, but I'm stoked to be on. Thank you.
No, you're all good. You're my second longest podcast I had to wait for, I think. I had to wait, 12 months for the co-founder of Netflix. I think you're right about 8 months.
Hey, man, good things come in time, right?
I know. I'm super excited about this. Okay, so where I want to start is you have such an incredible story, but I think kind of chronologically, I'd like to start with you co-founded Under Armour in Kevin Plank's basement, grandmother's basement actually, and then grew it into a publicly traded company with north of $4 billion in sales. What did you learn about yourself through this process?
Man, that's a great question. I think, when you say it, what comes to mind first is not only myself, what I learned, but we learned as a team is you can do anything. I mean, because when you start the journey and you tell people things, they think you're crazy. And they tell you that's nuts, or they're like discounting it, or like you're a dreamer, or they kind of write you off. And then you do the things that literally people said were impossible. And in some degree, you may have thought yourself were impossible. So when you ask me that question, the first thing, what did I learn, is like, man, you can do anything. I wasn't like a good student. I mean, I was a pretty good athlete, but not like world class. I was kind of average and maybe going down the wrong path, and we did it. So that resonates the most with me. I probably learned a lot of other things, but that just sticks out.
How old were you when you guys started it?
Yeah, I was right around that like 22, 23 timeframe.
Jeez.
I was a fifth year senior at University of Maryland. I had played my 4 years of college lacrosse. I actually didn't go to Maryland for 4 years. I actually went to junior college because I had horrible grades. I had bad test scores, and I couldn't get into a D1 school. And it was my dream to play at a Division I college program. So 2 years at Maryland, and then a year starting Under Armour. So my fifth year at Maryland, we gave it hell.
Wow. I think one of the cool things to discuss is a lot of my listeners are around my age. I'm 23 and I graduated college about 2 years ago. I've been podcasting for about 6 years now. And then I co-own a restaurant that we opened about 7 months ago. So myself and my listeners are very much so in like a building stage. Like we're young, we're ambitious, we want to do something impactful and something cool.
I love that.
One of the hardest parts is like cultivating that self-belief when you're this early on, you're not getting the results, but you know you should keep going. Like when you're 22 and helping co-found Under Armour, how did you cultivate belief in those early days?
Yeah, no, I think this is, again, man, your questions are spot on. This is going to be a fun podcast. There is no cultivating belief. Like, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
What you can cultivate is you're not that important in the scheme of the world. You're not that important. You're not. You're just another speck in the sand. So because you're not that important, you might as well fucking go for it. Like, the self-belief only comes after success. So in order to cultivate belief, you actually have to stop caring about success and willing to fail. And the way I did that was like, Like, stop being so, you're not that important. Like, come on. Like, give it a shot. Like, if it doesn't work, go back to waiting tables. Go join the army. Like, there's tons of things to fall back on. You're not that important. Nobody cares. Work harder. Right from my boy Cam. So I just think the belief is going to take a long time because it's going to take a lot of successes. I would like to tell you this because I was thinking about this prior to the podcast. I just had like a deep and utter moment in my life. And I've had a few of them along the way, obviously seeing a child born, a passing of my mom. Recently, I was standing on a Bush airplane landing strip in Alaska with a lodge I own and an outfitter I own, Bushwack, Alaska. And I had this deep sense of accomplishment. I'm 52 years old, going on 53. I helped start a public company. We took it to 5 billion, all kinds of accolades. None of it mattered to me. Actually, the self-belief just hit me.
Really?
I was just like, man, this is cool. I think I did something good. And it like sunk in me. It had never sunk in me up until that point. This is just a week ago.
Have you had a chance to reflect as to why that just happened?
I did. And Jacob, I don't know if you have this in your life, but you have to find things that recharge you as a soul, as a person, and you have to eliminate things that drain you, or at least balance the things that drain you. What gives me energy is being alive in the wilderness and being outside and connecting with people that are like-minded. And because Alaska is so enriching with those experiences, I felt like it unlocked a deep sense of appreciation for the things I had done in my life. I had never felt that way in my entire life. And I worked at Under Armour 21 years. And you would think you would get that sense of feeling from like, oh man, we went public. You guys are killing it. No. And people that know me probably are like, yeah, he's kind of doesn't, he just keeps going, keeps trying new shit. Just try. So anyway, I know I want to be able to two-way conversation here, but I did want to share that.
No, I think that's incredible because I read through almost all of your posts in preparation for this. And there's a lot of reflection, but there's not much appreciation at all for, I guess, the accomplishments. Like you're saying, you're very much so nobody cares, keep working harder. And to hear you actually have that moment, it's super interesting. Like that,
because you need to be able to perform without having that feeling. That's the magic. If you can get up every day, perform, work hard, treat people right, come up with new ideas, problem solve, be bold, be an innovator, take risk, back to treat people right, be humble. If you can wake up every day and do that and not have the sense of accomplishment, dude, you're unfucking stoppable because there's no end.
And that's something I've been thinking about a lot recently. Like growing up, on occasion, you have to do things you don't want to when you don't feel like it. But now in this position, as I'm trying to build, like we have employees, we have payroll, there's some responsibility with it. And it's no longer an option not to do it if I don't feel like it. And so showing up even in that head frame where you don't necessarily want to be there, that's something I'm spending a lot of time thinking about and how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple occupations that force you to do that. Maybe you're a firefighter or you're a Navy SEAL or a first responder, and you have to perform under these conditions that you just don't want to be in. But generally speaking, the majority of occupations and even childhood are not really that stressful in the scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn how to get up and do things that you don't want to do, especially for entrepreneurs. Like some entrepreneurs are like, oh man, I love design. I just want to design the restaurant. Okay, well, if you don't run good finances, you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do a bunch of jobs that you really don't love. That's the magic. Because we all have our favorite things we like to do. You have to really kind of wake up and do it. I wasn't feeling good after I got back from Alaska. I picked up, maybe a head cold or something. And I had my best workout I probably have had in 5 years. And I was sick as a dog.
Because you showed up anyways?
Yeah. I just told myself like, oh, really? You're not going to go because you have a little cold? Oh, why don't you lay down, Kip? That was the conversation I had.
I like that. We were talking about Andy Frisella prior to the podcast, and I had him on my podcast a couple of years ago, and he's got this thing where he breaks down by percentage. It comes out roughly to like 95% of the time he wants to slam his head in the door, and he actually enjoys what he's doing a total of like 1% of the time. And that's the cost of entrepreneurship in his opinion. And it feels like that's kind of the formula for life of what you're saying is like, regardless of what you're feeling, don't give into it. If you push through, you'll maybe even feel better like after that workout that you did when you didn't want to do it.
There's another level, and I'm learning from other people. I'm like a sponge. I like to listen, learn, experience, tap into new ideas, and then I have a high memory, and I'm like a pattern recognition because I'm like ADHD, pretty severe. Like there's some people out there like Courtney Dower, the runner, or DeWalter. She used to avoid like this thing she called the pain cave in her running. And now she like tries to figure out how quickly she can get to the place that's uncomfortable. And so there's even another unlock that I like thinking about or trying to experience in all aspects of life is how quickly can I get uncomfortable? How quickly can I hate it? How can I perform in all those situations? Instead of putting it off and then finally doing it, but doing it well, how can I do it fast and efficient and really hate it?
Does that reflex get easier with more repetition? Hey guys, Jacob here. Real quick before we get back to the episode, I just want to take a quick second to say, if you guys are enjoying this episode, please make sure to share the link with a friend. You may have noticed I don't run any ads in the podcast. In fact, I don't make any money off the podcast. It's quite the contrary. Over the past 5 years, I've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into the growth of the show, trying to continually upgrade the equipment, bring on better guests, and just improve the overall quality of the podcast. So if you guys are enjoying this episode or if you enjoyed previous episodes, please share the link with a friend. Sending it to 1 or 2 people makes a huge difference for me on the back end. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Let's get back into the episode.
I haven't found it to be easier with repetition. I think you build a little bit of callus in your mind, so that probably helps. I think it's like the ice bath. It's like the minute you like stop doing an ice bath for a week, like, and you jump back in it, it feels like you started from scratch. But yeah, no, that's just my personal way to look at it. I think there may be people that look at it differently, and that are super successful. There's not one way to do things. There's a lot of ways to be successful. And this is just some things I've adopted.
I love that you brought up the ice bath because that's something that, like the amount of high performers that I've interviewed, I almost always ask them, do you ice bath? And it's such an out-of-pocket question, but there's got to be a correlation between forcing yourself to do difficult things and being able to do difficult things in your business and like having that discipline. Like I love ice baths for that reason, because every time you get in, it doesn't get any easier. Like, when did you start ice bathing? And it was for that reason, or I guess what has been the benefit of it to you?
No, I'm a drug addict to dopamine because I have low dopamine because I have ADHD. And so focus is tough. Dopamine helps you focus. And so I literally get 4 or 5 hours of the best focus of my life right after an ice bath. Yes, it creates mental toughness and those things. Let's apply it to business. Maybe you started something, you've hired a few friends, maybe you've hired some acquaintances, and they're not performing. That's really difficult to call them in, sit them down, talk about expectations that are not being met. And they're like, dude, we're boys. Like, what are you talking about? That's really difficult. So you put it off. You don't do it. You go months, weeks, years, and you don't solve some personnel problems. That's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's uncomfortable, so you didn't do it. And when it comes to like personal relationships, people will avoid it at all cost. And I used to be the funny guy at Under Armour. People like, well, I'm having trouble with Travis. He's not doing well, or Sarah, or like Julie is not really. She didn't do good on her last performance appraisal. I'm like, cool. Do you want me to fire him?
Just jumping in.
Yeah, because I could see that they had already come to the conclusion, but they wouldn't do the work. So a couple of them started calling me Norm from the show Cheers, which is ages me a lot. But he once got a job and they made him the HR guy and he had to fire everybody. And so people were scared when they saw Norm come through the hall. But those little things are difficult to do. I think you're scratching on the surface. Is you got to get really comfortable quick. You have to actually seek them out. You need to want to do them because they make your business better.
I love that. One of the things I really enjoy about following you is your mentality. Like, you actively try and write it out, and you do it in a manner where there's very little filter. It's just a very direct stream of flow of thought and consciousness. One of the things you wrote about the period of your life of starting Under Armour was not taking any days off, no vacations, debt through the roof with little pay. Winning is doing all of this and never once thinking twice and never complaining. I would love to hear your thoughts on winning and the price of ambition.
Well, I definitely made it sound better than it is. Like, of course I complained. Of course I bitched. And, you try to minimize it, but you get in fights with partners and you make bad decisions. But ultimately, they're just like speed bumps. They're not like walls. You just go over the speed bump and you keep going. You can't let setback after setback after setback after setback like deter you. And I think, again, what you're scratching at is this unrelenting willingness to try or learn or adapt. I grew up in a military family. We moved every 2 years. I was always the new kid, 4 elementaries, 3 different high schools, 2 different colleges, a dozen plus states, Bermuda, Hawaii. In Hawaii, I was the white kid. I was the minority, which is the exact opposite of Northern Virginia, where, the white are the majority. So you have to learn to adapt at every school you went to. I think it's in my nature that I want change. It's really uncomfortable for other people to deal with change. So I just saw speed bumps or problems in the business as just change. I didn't label them as failure. I didn't label them as this is not going to work or why are we doing this? This debt's too much. I'm not making enough money. I just labeled it as change. And hopefully later it'll change again. And I think if you can adopt that positive mentality about change, go read the book, Who Moved My Cheese. It's a brilliant book about, change. Change is really gripping for people. At the end of the day, if you pull back the layers of the onion and you see where people are struggling, they're just struggling because they don't want to deal with the goddamn change. Sometimes change good, sometimes change bad. But the bad change is actually a good indicator. Like, you did something and you had a bad outcome. That's like you learn a lot more. You do something and you get a positive outcome. Your brain kind of convinces you know what the fuck you're doing and actually hides the truth of what happened. You actually learn more from failure.
With how successful Under Armour was, do you think that it almost had a negative impact from the standpoint of what you're saying of a massive failure will allow you to learn more? I'm sure you had plenty of failures along the way, but I'm just thinking ultimately that was highly successful.
Yeah, no, I didn't take it that way. That's why I talked about having a moment a week ago about appreciation that I've done something good, because I did not take Under Armour as a positive. I had a gritty mentality that I thought everything was broken all the time and I needed to fix it because the responsibility was on my shoulders. I never I don't think at 21 years I felt at Under Armour I had anything under control. I felt like, oh yeah, we got to fix that. What about this? We can get better here. We can make more margin. We can drive new products. We can. I mean, we can do more. I never felt like we accomplished shit. That's my point. It felt very negative. And I learned a lot from it. And so as much as you're looking at it from the outside going, man, that was such a positive experience in your life. It was that a detraction? Could you have learned more? And I'm like, dude, that was a fucking recipe of failures after failure after failure. That was my mentality. And along the way, people were like, dude, you guys are killing it. And I'm like, no, we're not. Isn't that odd?
Well, it's just such a conundrum because you look at the numbers, like from an analytical standpoint, you guys are crushing it. But for you to feel that way every day, like, why didn't you quit? Like, if you feel that negative about it in the moment.
I did once. I quit once. So, it didn't happen. My partner was smart enough to entice me to stay. I'm not the special sauce at Under Armour. I don't want to make it sound like Kip. I was a part of a team and there was some great, smarter people than me. I think that I thrived off of pushing to get better. And I don't know. I just like, it seems lackadaisical to think that things are good. They're never good. What are you talking about? There's always room for improvement. It might be microscopic improvement, but I want that little improvement as much as I want the big improvement. So I think the recipe of some great people, obviously the founder, Kevin Plank, very driven, very brilliant, myself and some other leaders that were fucking tenacious as shit. That was a good recipe, man. It's a chemistry set. It's not one chemical. It's not like, oh my God, look at this. We found zinc. Well, zinc by itself is not that good. It needs a bunch of other things to activate the zinc. You need a bunch of chemistry sets to get a real inertia in a business. Yeah, if you're a celebrity or you're like a YouTuber and you're fucking famous, you can be a one-trick pony, but you probably have a bunch of people behind the scene too that are making you successful. So, yeah, that was just my mentality, and it worked well with the people around me. They didn't necessarily like me. I've never been really interested in this idea in business specifically that I'm really well liked. It's not important to me. Respected is the ultimate goal, and I made some great decisions, and I've really made some poor ones too, where I lost people's respect. That to me is more defining. Trust me, I've messed up a lot.
As we talk about your relationship with people, one of the cool relationships that came out of your time at Under Armour was friendship with Cameron Haynes. Why do you think you guys were drawn to each other?
Man, Cam is obviously a very special person. He's mentally probably one of the toughest people, especially when it comes to some of the physical and mental things he does with running and hunting. I don't know why we were drawn to each other. It's an interesting, I think fate and destiny is ultimately at play. Every time two items touch, this is a law of criminal justice, especially criminal investigation. Every time two objects touch, each object takes something. It could be a hair follicle, it could be a chip from a tool, it could be a fingerprint. Every time two objects touch, they take something from each other. I think that happened with us, and we kind of kindled the fire. I definitely seeked him out and wanted to connect, and then I think we just built a bond over a long period of time. It's kind of a bro thing, I guess, but like we're pretty much look at each other like brothers now.
Looking at it from the outside, it seems like a mindset thing. Like, you guys are both very intentional, focused, hardworking. Nobody cares, work harder. I mean, you look at someone like Cam who just ran 250 miles on a broken foot. Why would you not want to be close to someone like that? Why would you not want to try and find any way to get a little bit more of a mental edge from someone like that?
Because people are scared of getting too close to the sun because it'll reflect on themselves on how poor they are. And I never care because I think I'm shit anyway.
That was
So,
brilliant. I like that a lot.
like, stop taking yourself so serious. Like, I don't think I'm very good at anything. So I'm not going to look, I don't care about looking bad. I get it. I have a lot to do. Now, when it comes to, like, there's people teach each other things. And I think ultimately those are the best type of relationships. They act in a way that commerce acts. Commerce is the exchange of goods and services. Relationships is the same thing. If there's not an exchange of goods and services in a relationship and I don't bring something to you and you don't bring something to me, then you fail to have good commerce. You fail to have good relationships. Cam brought something that's really special to me, and ultimately it's acceptance. Cam forces you to accept Cam for who the hell he is. Cam's not nice to me all the time. Cam doesn't send me like love letters on my birthday. Like, what are you talking about? He's an asshole to me. He's busy. He's running around. He's short. He gets angry. He's frustrated. Like, he wants things a certain way. And we partnered together in his podcast. So we're in business together too. And so he taught me acceptance. I had to say, Kip, don't try to change Cam or don't try to him deliver something you need for yourself. Accept him for who he is. And I think ultimately what I taught Cam, you would have to ask him. But I believe there was probably some exchange of goods and services that we learned something from each other.
Yeah. It seems that despite you not being worried about people liking you, you've managed to attract just super high level talent and managed to work with some incredible people. What I'd like to talk about next is, for those who don't know, what is Origin and how did you guys assemble such a killer and impressive executive team?
Well, I mean, here's one of the things that I have to acknowledge, that I came on as a small investor and a partner with Pete and Jocko, but Pete is the visionary, started the company. Jocko and him partnered soon after. I just fell in love with the idea of American made and bought in that this is a good way to kind of not only invest in a long-term vision, but also be a part of a cool team. And so, yeah, I may have some input here and there on some things, and Pete and I talk a lot, and then we kind of go stints where we don't talk at all. Yeah, ultimately, it's been a good learning for both of us. Again, he's learned some stuff. I've learned a lot. So, and unless that exchange is happening, you'll find that relationships never really work. So, I'm super excited to be about it. I think the guys are killing it. They have a cool team. Their team with Phil and Dennis and Travis, a guy who worked for me at Under Armour. Andy, a bunch of people on the manufacturing side. These guys are killers, man. They're really committed. They're really committed. Much like that chemistry set I talked about at Under Armour. Pete has assembled a chemistry set of good people. That's the nature of the beast. There is no brand that's about a person. It's about a team. So he's done a great job, and obviously Jocko steps in every now and then too, and shines a light on things. And he's, just like Jocko's exactly like he is. There's no like two sides to Jocko. So it's been a blast, man. I'm super grateful.
It's been fun to watch from the outside. And for those that don't know, I would love for you to give a little bit more context about how it started and what the mission is.
Yeah, so it's 100% made in USA, from every shoelace to every thread, all sourced in the United States. 100% made in USA, with factories in Maine and North Carolina. And Pete started it by building a factory in the woods of Maine, to build jiu-jitsu uniforms and gis. And he's a very accomplished black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he still practices every day. And jiu-jitsu is a huge part of their business. Maybe not necessarily in revenue, but in terms of focus and mentality and what the brand stands for. So yeah, that's the story of origin. It's pretty cool. And it's funny because it's a barn in the woods of Maine. Under Armour was in the basement of Kevin's grandma's garage. It's like all these very humble beginnings, man. You can't skip steps. That's what I've learned in life.
Well, it's inspiring because if you guys started with a ton of capital and all the connections you already needed, like someone like myself and my listeners, that's too daunting. Like, how are we going to get to that position? We're coming out of college with no money in our pockets. Like, the fact you started that way makes it more accessible for us.
But isn't that always the stories? Like, don't you always, I mean, yeah, there's like private equity guys they grew up with money and they start something and maybe they're successful. But I think they lack the intelligence and the innovation. I think the humble beginnings is the spark that becomes big. It's the contrary to mainstream. I think if you look at the recent acquisition of Poppy, the soda brand, I think you look at Gymshark, you look at trying to think of startup brands. You look at Red Bull, GoPro. You go right back to a humble beginning of an innovative entrepreneur. So anybody out there that's listening, thinking they need big money and like all this prestige and important people to help you start. Yeah, that's nice. Most of the time it doesn't work because those people are fucking lazy.
And when you skip steps, you don't get the skills that would be gained in that process.
Can't skip steps. You get called out at second base because your foot didn't hit first base and the guy just walks up to you and tags you out. It's the easiest out in the game. You didn't step on the base.
So at this stage in your life, you're involved in so many different things. You're off in Alaska. You've got Origin. You've got the brewery as well. Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, it is all of them. Like I just got off a call right before we jumped on because at Big Truck, we just launched a beer that we can ship right to your house now.
Oh, sweet.
So we can ship beer all over the country. People can order it for Father's Day. They can order it for Mother's Day, Christmas, even if Big Truck's not sold in your state. And we make great brews and we grow all the ingredients, not all the ingredients, I shouldn't say that. We grow our grain right on our property. So it's really farm to can. Like it's a great process, amazing beer. So yeah, I work on Big Truck, jump in here and there. Talking to my guides in Alaska, my partner, Tim Winslow. I'm doing a bunch of logistics. I like a shitload of stimulus all the time. All the time. Actually, I wrote out what I did in a day and for 7 days. And then I shared it with someone who's super close to me. And they were like, this is the craziest fucking list I've ever seen. Sorry for my cussing. They're like, there's no way you did all that this week. And I'm like, yeah, man, actually, you're right. I did more. I forgot this. I forgot that. I forgot this. I forgot that. I started adding stuff to the list. I need a lot of stimulus. That's not for everybody though. And definitely things fall through the cracks and I can be more organized. But that's my day. I'm jumping from brand to brand, problem to problem. But if you look at what I'm working on and you step back at 30,000 feet, if it's Origin or if it's Big Truck or if it's Bushwack or it's Montana Knife Company board member or it's Jocko Fuel board member, they're actually all very similar customers. I have aligned myself on a customer that I highly understand. And it's also a reflection of me. It's an outdoorsman. It's someone who's driven, appreciates American made. They like craftsmanship. They probably hunt and fish, or at least they camp and hike. They're into sports. They're into endurance sports. They like to train. It's men and women, a lot more men than women, but both. I'm actually just getting good at a consumer. If you look at everything I'm doing, I'm not jumping out going, oh, let me get into gaming for 14-year-olds. I don't know anything. I can't help you. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I love that you hit on that alignment, because that is one of the things I was going to bring up is when you start going outside of one given domain, you affect the compounding that would occur within that domain of the knowledge stacking on top of itself. But by you having a consumer profile that you're trying to meet through all these different businesses, like you're still gaining the benefit of that compounding. It's not like you're starting a software company that's servicing restaurants while also trying to have a hunting brand on the other side of the spectrum. Like what you're doing is all in alignment. So I love the fact that you pointed that out, because it follows the principle of allowing that knowledge to continue to compound, which will get you exponential results.
Yeah, no, I think that's said wisely. I think where you jump out, you have to be very careful that you didn't go too far outside your skill set, too far outside of your understanding of the consumer, and because your risk exponentially goes up. And so I've seen that pattern play out over and over again. It's something I learned at Under Armour. It's very hard to go from a tight-fitting T-shirt to selling cleats, or it's hard from a tight-fitting T-shirt to making basketball uniforms. Like along the way, you have to learn to like make the bridge so that consumers are like, what? You're selling me what now? Yeah, I loved you guys for base layer, but now you're like trying to sell me like waterproof jackets. Why would I believe in you? Like you're only, you know what I mean? So I learned that bridge is super important. And I'm still learning it. So, but I think you called it out. It has an exponential effect when done thoughtfully. I'm a big thinker. Like I think through every step like 1,000 times. Like I'm not just, I don't go to like football games or like go be with my buddies at the bar or like go over to dad's houses and like hang out after my kid's soccer game. I don't do any of that shit. I think I work.
I'm the same way. My brain is always on trying to work through problems. Even if I feel like I've come up with the solution, I want to find every fail safe. Like I want to look at it from every perspective. And that can be exhausting. But I do think it is a benefit.
It's also exhausting for people around you. Like not everybody loves to be around me.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that from my perspective too. One of the things you talked about was risk. And so if you go 1, 2, 3 degrees outside of a given domain, we're talking about the compounding of skill sets. That does amplify your risk, as you mentioned. One of the earlier points you made in the podcast was when you helped start Under Armour, the thought process that you used to get yourself to jump and go in on that was, well, what do I have to lose? I don't have anything in this current position, so why not give it everything I have? You currently do. You have built a miniature empire at this point. I mean, you've made a good amount of money. You've been successful, even though you don't want to view it that way. Like you do have something to lose from this perspective. So I'm curious, has your risk profile changed, or how do you conceptualize risk at this current stage in your life?
Yeah, I definitely compartmentalize and build redundancy to mitigate the risk, whether that's financially, whether that's relationships, whether that's businesses, whether that's kind of marketing. Like I've learned to de-risk myself because I'm maybe bold thinker, maybe I try things, that I have to have as many very solid and true backup plans that are thoughtful, because there's other people's lives that are impacted, whether it's people that work for me, whether it's friends and family, or whether it's the health of the brands, because the brands are like little kids, you know, they need something to eat. Yeah, I'm good at redundancy and trying to think through like worst case scenario. Like back to my mentality is like, I think everything's falling apart all the time and we're not doing that well. So when you think like that, you inherently are looking at problems through the lens of, oh shit, I better have some stopgaps. So it's an intricate way of putting some risk mitigation things in place. That could be giving people jobs and passing things off to people because it takes the risk off my plate. Like Kip can't get to that. So let me assign that to someone else and let me help them, but ultimately let them do their job and don't micromanage them. It could be a financial aspect where, hey, you invested a bunch of money in this risky thing. You better also invest a bunch of money in this very kind of sure thing over here. So there's a nice balancing that I think I've learned to help kind of navigate that a little bit. There's a lot of tentacles there, but I hope that makes sense.
It does. I'm curious, like, does risk make it more fun for you? Because after your first exit or your first liquidity event, you could have just put everything in mutual funds and probably just done something very average and bland. Like, does risk make it more exciting to you?
No. Risk, I don't enjoy the risk part of it. If you let it grip into you, risk is fear. And so I don't enjoy fear. I would never admit to enjoying fear. Fear is real.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can be courageous and bold, but ultimately I don't enjoy that part of it. I enjoy building things and problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was just being, pretty blunt about the things I enjoy and the things I don't enjoy, I don't necessarily enjoy the risk. I enjoy the more the fruits of building things and seeing it over time become something. I like to go far out and then try to figure out all the steps to get to the idea. That to me is the fun part.
How far out do you try and think through stuff? Is that 5 years, 10 years? Like, how far are you trying to create a vision?
Yeah, I'm pretty far out. 5 to 10 years is like my normal horizon. As you get older, you kind of tighten that up. You might look 24 to 36 months out, but usually I'm 5 to 10 years out. Well, I got a good idea of what 5 years is going to look like.
If you were going to give advice to someone who was my age, 23, of crafting a vision for the next 5 to 10 years, what general principles or advice should we consider?
It definitely has to be goal-oriented with something that's measurable. And, I want to have a better relationship with my parents in 5 years. Okay, I get it. How are you going to measure that? So when it comes to business, like good old goal setting is like how much time and what's the measurable? Revenue is a good one, right? Revenue is a good one. Profit's a good one. Money in the bank's a good one. They're not the only things, but they're easy to measure.
Mm-hmm.
And they're highly successful. Like I'm 23. By the time I'm 26, I want to have $100,000 invested, and I don't need it. Hey, man, that's like pretty easy. In 3 years, do you have it or not? So those tangible metrics is what I sweat in businesses. Everything else is bullshit. What is the tangible metric that you can align? They're all building blocks to a goal. And if you get good at them, you can game the system by just focusing on the metrics that work. A lot of people like to use metrics to like blow smoke up your ass and create a smoke screen, but they're not actually building it to run a good business.
Do you consider, we talked about compounding earlier, do you consider that with your goal setting? Like if you're trying to, let's say you're trying to make $10 million in revenue in a business 10 years from now, is it $1 million after year one? It's not going to be linear, like $1 million every year until you're at 10. Like, do you factor in?
You have some milestones along the way that are lead indicators to show you if you're on your path.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had some goal of 10 million for your business and you think, well, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years just to get to $1 million. And then after that, some things are going to happen a little bit differently because you're going to get some scale. But there should be some lead indicators that you could look at. The number of new customers you added last year. There's a lot of little nuances that you could dig into to build. I'm pretty intuitive with those things. I would say at Under Armour, we were much more detailed. I would say in my own businesses, I definitely could do a better job of writing them down.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like, I know them, and I'm marching towards them, even though not all of them are written down.
Yeah. No, I love that. And Kip, as we wrap up here, because we're getting close and I'll be respectful of your time.
No, I'm good, man. I appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. Before I ask my final question here, where can people find you if they want to reach out, learn more, and connect with you?
I mean, I think I'm kind of wonky, funny, weird on Instagram. My Instagram handle is 13 Pacific Waves. And from there, you can see the businesses I'm involved in. That's probably the best way to follow along with my journey. We are starting some new things for some of my businesses on YouTube. If you're into a big truck and hunting and fishing with Bushwack, you'll enjoy those things. But yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, I think I have a question for you. What is a win for you and this podcast over the next 24 months? Like, how do you look at what you're doing? Because I'm very curious. Because I think it's very cool that you're so young and you're just jumping in and swinging. I'm just curious, what's a win look like for you?
Yeah, so I started this podcast 6 years ago in my bedroom when I was in high school when I was 17, and I had no listeners at that point. And the entire purpose of the podcast was I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. I'd started a couple small businesses that weren't doing anything, and I needed guidance and mentorship. I wanted to learn from the best. I feel like that's the biggest hack you can have, is to have good people in your corner to give you great advice and to actually take that advice and implement it. And so I tried reaching out to people. I couldn't get anyone to hop on the phone with me. And then I discovered this thing called podcasting when I was 16, 17. And I realized that if I were to record the conversation, someone's maybe not willing to give me time one-on-one, but if that time could be in an exponential manner where it could be downloaded by anyone who found it on the internet, then that was a benefit to the other person. So 1 + 1 = 3 in that equation. So I said, okay, I'm going to start recording these conversations and I'll share it with people so that I get benefit and then my guest gets benefit and the audience gets benefit as well. So it's a personal reason plus an impact play. And that's been the strategy. So that as I look out over this time horizon, it's just, I want to continue to meet great people and surround myself with the best. And then as a byproduct of that, benefit my listeners. If I can help just one person, then that makes all the difference to me.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, I mean, it's very cool to see someone just jump in at a young age. That is hard for a lot of people to do. And I'm sure you got friends, family, buddies, people and jumping in feet first is not everybody's thing. It's just not.
Yeah, I didn't talk about the podcast while I was in high school. Like, I did it for 2 years, my junior, senior, and no one knew about it. It wasn't until the last 4 years that I even let people know I had a podcast.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that's I mean, that's very cool. That helps me understand it. And I'm glad that we got to connect after. I mean, I think the dude from Netflix is way cooler than I am, but I'm glad I was hard to get on the podcast.
No, man, it's been a blast. And I really do appreciate your time. My final question for you is, looking back at this really cool journey you've been on, what advice would you offer to your 23-year-old self?
Holy shit. Man, that's an hour. That's like an hour in itself. So I gotta distill that down. Don't believe the stories in your head, Kip. Don't believe the stories in your head. So that's my advice to my 23-year self. I think most people are in their own way, and I surely was at a young age.